We are heading into the depths of winter, and there on the East Coast, a winter storm which laid down significant snowfalls from Kansas to the northeast. Let's take a look at those snowfall amounts. These are the 72-hour totals ending this morning, and we saw snow as far south as Dodge City, Oklahoma City, the Ozarks, northwestern Tennessee, and into much of West Virginia. Some heavy amounts, 4 to 5 inches in northeastern Kansas, and increasing to 8 to 10 inches around the Chicago area, and even heavier amounts on the western Michigan coast. The current surface map shows an improving trend. As we have this coastal low near Long Island, it is moving to the northeast. We're still getting some wraparound into New York, New England, and the New York City area. The rain-snow transition line runs from about Poughkeepsie to Boston, anywhere north of that getting snow. High pressure moving in, behind that only 1022 millibars. Most of the high-pressure areas we've seen so far this winter have been on the weak side, and that appears to be the trend over the next 1 to 2 weeks. The next outbreak of cold air heading south, that's being pushed by a 1030 millibar high, but again, we're not up near those 1040s and 1050s, which cause the cold air to completely clear all of the eastern and central U.S. Some indication of a split flow pattern right there, Nevada to Utah, the Four Corners, with a little bit of snow coming down across the higher terrain of the Four Corners region. We go on up to 500 millibars, look at the mid-troposphere. We see in the eastern Pacific ridging all the way up into Yukon, long wave troughing all across the central and eastern U.S., with a Hudson Bay vortex located right there. Now, this is indicative of a positive PNA pattern. You've got the low pressure area right there, low heights across the Aleutians. We have ridging across western Canada and troughing in the eastern Gulf. That is a positive PNA pattern, and that's consistent with northwesterly flow from Canada into the lower 48, and that tends to be a cold pattern. The changes over the next week or so, we see some de-amplification of the pattern. It becomes a little bit more zonal, and you can see the increased influence from the Pacific. Pretty good gate of momentum there between the deep Gulf of Alaska low and the higher heights located off of California. That favors an active storm track into the western and Pacific Northwest region. Certainly the potential for an atmospheric river into British Columbia, Washington, or Oregon over the next week or so. Let's take a look at the northeast, and we do have a little bit of clearing. Most of the dry air is in the mid and upper levels, but still some residual stratus all across this Midwest region. But in the breaks, like right here in Michigan, you can see that snow on the ground. Any evidence of snow further to the west? Yeah, definitely there in Iowa. Those are 6 to 8 inch amounts, maybe up to 10 inches there. You can see the rivers very clearly, and that snow extends all the way down towards Springfield, Missouri. The main dynamic weather system moving off of the East Coast, there it is right there. We can get a closer look there on the water vapor imagery, and as that comes up, you can see that middle and higher cloud as well as the area of dry air trailing in behind the weather system. That's subsidence in the mid and upper atmosphere, and there's still some residual moisture in the boundary layer. We saw continued cold weather across the northeastern region with 20s and 30s in the interior and 40s in the northeast corridor into Virginia. We had snow amounts yesterday, 3 to 5 inches across Ohio. That set daily records at Columbus, Cincinnati, and Wilmington. In Michigan, Muskegon recorded 7 inches, and bitter cold across Indiana, Fort Wayne, dropping to 7 degrees yesterday, setting a new daily record. Winter storm warnings continue through the northeast from the Hudson River Valley, the Catskills up to New England, southern Maine, That runs all day today and tonight. 6 to 9 inches of additional snow possible in that warning area. Moderate travel impacts expected. And a large winter weather advisory extending into Pennsylvania, the Shenandoahs, and across the remainder of the Northeast, north of New York and Baltimore. So you can watch the snow clear out tonight there in Maine and New England. By tomorrow, looking pretty good, but here comes the next wave across the Great Lakes. We get the increased lake effect snows picking up once again for Wednesday night into Thursday, and some heavy amounts around Watertown and lesser amounts from Hamburg to Erie and Cleveland. Overnight lows for tonight in the 20s just about everywhere except Boston and New York and the Delmarva. They're going to be in the 30s. Then for tomorrow, warming up to the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But check out the lows tomorrow night and especially Thursday night, down into the single digits in upstate New York, Maine, New England, and teens, all the way down towards the New York City area and Baltimore. In the southeastern U.S., we saw heavy rains along the Gulf Coast. There were widespread 1 to 3 inch amounts from New Orleans to Montgomery and Tallahassee. Mobile, Alabama saw 3.22 inches. Today, forecast highs ranged from the 30s in Tennessee, that strong cold advection driving thick layers of stratocumulus southeastward. By contrast, in Florida, warming up to the mid-80s, 85 at Miami, and 86 at West Palm Beach. Overnight lows for tonight near freezing as far south as Baton Rouge, Mobile, Columbus, and Macon. For tomorrow, warming up into the 50s across the deep south, 60s on the Gulf Coast as they get a taste of that cold air, but still quite warm in southern Florida. The southern plains on the tail end of that area of cold advection. We saw cold conditions the past couple days. Yesterday, Austin set a daily record for the coldest high temperature with 45 degrees. Same thing at Houston Hobby with 48 degrees. Today, after a freeze in many areas, we saw warmer conditions up to the 60s in West Texas with 72 at Fort Stockton. Winter weather advisories are in effect for northern New Mexico, east of Santa Fe and Albuquerque. A fast-moving upper disturbance associated with that frontal boundary through the Four Corners area will cross tomorrow and tomorrow night. And we can see the increasing baroclinicity as this next baroclinic leaf works through Utah and Arizona. Here are the 6-hour snow totals going through the day tomorrow. The Sangre de Cristo is really racking up those snow totals up to 1 inch at Raton, 2 inches at Chama, I think, and those gradually start tapering off as we go into Thursday. Looks like Amarillo getting a little bit of that snow. Overnight lows for tonight, another cold one, but not quite as cold. Freezing down to Lubbock, Ardmore, and Texarkana. Mid-30s to 40s further south. Then tomorrow, warming up nicely into the 70s across central Texas into the Trans-Pecos. More cold air advances in from the north from Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas. Temperatures in the 30s from Guyman to Farmington. In the northern plains, we saw a warming trend in the high plains, 40s, though 20s persist across the Great Lakes into Minnesota. Winter weather advisories cover the I-25 corridor of Colorado. That includes the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the Front Range, the Palmer Divide. Also included Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo. Snow amounts will be 2 to 5 inches, with locally higher amounts in the higher terrain. Winter storm warning for the Sangre de Cristos all day Wednesday, 10 to 17 inch amounts above 9,000 feet. Additional winter weather advisories further west around the Continental Divide, around Aspen, and a few of the other areas there in western Colorado. And we have winter weather advisories for south and southeast Montana into Sheridan along Interstate 94 and Interstate 15. We'll take a look at that snow event for tonight and going into tomorrow. picking up there in Wyoming and Colorado during the day, shifting south, moving through the heart of Colorado tomorrow afternoon and into New Mexico during the evening. Overnight lows for tonight dropping below 0 Fahrenheit as another influx of cold air comes in from Canada. Then for tomorrow night, brutal cold. Look at that. -10, -14. That advances into Chicago, Des Moines, and Springfield for Thursday night. There's your high temperatures for tomorrow. Very cold up north, 30s further south. For the southwestern U.S., the next baroclinic wave on the move, and there it is. Let's take a look at the water vapor imagery for a structural look. And that appears to be the embryonic phase of that familiar comet cloud pattern. In fact, it looks like it's trying to come together right there across the Wasatch Range, and subsidence in the wake of that across central California. Tule fog persists from Sacramento all the way down to just north of Bakersfield around Fresno. We are going to see one more night of that in the southern San Joaquin Valley. Some erosion from north to south as increasing gradient flow sets in across California, and we'll see a modest Santa Ana wind event as those south or northeast winds pick up. The San Fernando Valley looking for northeast winds gusting to 55 miles an hour Wednesday into early Thursday. They have wind advisories up for that. The gradient between northern Nevada, southern California, only 8 millibars, which is not really favorable for Santa Ana winds, but they will get some winds at least. A freeze warning for the Carrizo Plain into Atascadero, Camp Roberts. Let's look at those temperatures for tonight. And there you go, some pockets of very cold temperatures. This bright blue right in here, that indicates temperatures near freezing. And also in the Antelope Valley, there could be some pockets of very cold weather. 20s and teens all across the Great Basin area. And for tomorrow, warming up to near 70 degrees in the deserts, 40s and 30s further up north. And in the Pacific Northwest, we had winter weather advisories in the Bitterroots. I believe all those have expired. Temperatures were in the 30s this afternoon east of the Cascades, 40s around Bend up to Yakima, and near 50 degrees in the Interstate 5 corridor. For tonight, bitterly cold across Montana and Wyoming, 20s east of the Cascades and 30s and 40s west of the Cascades. Temperatures tomorrow warming up to 45 at Seattle, 48 at Portland, and lots of 30s and 40s further to the east. Heading out west into the Pacific, a high-pressure area off the west coast, 1029 millibars. We pick up some very stormy weather there in the Bering Sea. We have storm warnings for northeast winds 40 to 60 knots there on the seas, and waves of 25 feet. In southwestern Alaska, we have an ice storm warning for Bethel and the lower Kuskokwim Valley until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, 3/4 of an inch of ice, along with blizzard conditions that could locally knock out the power. Winter storm warning in the lower Yukon River Valley. There we're looking for, I don't have the totals on that, but further inland, along this Arctic front, we do have a winter weather advisory all through the Fairbanks area until 3 p.m. Wednesday. 4 to 8 inch snow amounts are possible, and those extend into Canada as a yellow warning for blizzard conditions in northern Yukon Wednesday and Thursday morning. Heading further south, big high-pressure area, only 1029 millibars, but a very good chunk of cold air. Temperatures well below -10 to -20 Fahrenheit, and I think I see -33 right there. I think that is one of the diamond mines north of Yellowknife. Not totally sure on that. Is that Diavik or I can't recall offhand. Northern Manitoba, they have a yellow warning for cold weather tonight, wind chills down to -50. Other problem areas in the Maritimes, this coastal low will work across Nova Scotia and Newfoundland over the next couple of days. The interior of Nova Scotia, a yellow warning for snowfall through Wednesday afternoon, 6 to 10 inch amounts of snow. And this area of Newfoundland right there, a orange warning for a winter storm. St. Albans to Port Blandford and Bona Vista, 12 to 16 inch snowfall amounts, northeast winds to 65 miles an hour. The rest of the central and eastern island under a yellow warning for snowfall, amounts of snow up to 10 inches. And let's check out that situation with the Arctic air. There's the cyan indicating very cold air, minus 10, minus 20. Oranges picking up in the minus 20 and minus 30 range. So that will be heading south into Manitoba, spreading into Ontario, and that cyclonic flow pulling it into eastern Canada and not the lower 48, although we do get some polar air regeneration across the Dakotas and Minnesota for Wednesday night and Thursday. Some more of that deep orange starting to show up in the Northwest Territories and the Yukon flats of eastern Alaska. However, nothing really driving that south. The ridge located right there and only looking at 1025 to 1030 millibars. So we are lacking that bit of energy to kick that south. Plenty of cold air, just not much of a favorable pattern. But continued cold air generation up there. This looks pretty interesting. Up there in Yukon, plenty of orange. So we're going to monitor this going into the middle of December, depending on how that builds. See, now we're starting to get into the 1040s, 1048 there. So this could be significant going into the middle of December. And one little chunk of it moving into Western Canada, the High Plains, and some of it pushing across British Columbia into the Fraser River Valley as well. You can compare that with February of 2021 when we had that big outbreak. A lot more orange, and especially a lot more coverage of that cyan color. So there are some differences, not indicating as much cold air as what we see here, but you can see some similarities where the cold air is established across that area of Northwest Territories, Yukon, and Alaska. So in the meantime, we'll walk you through this, the outgoing coastal low, the new infusion of cold air from the northern border area, and of course this southern stream system bringing some snow to Colorado and New Mexico. So there's tomorrow, there's that snow. Some upslope conditions as well, which will help with those snow amounts. Plenty of cold air coming south through the northern plains and the Great Lakes, but only a meager 1034 millibar high, so it's not going to come too far south. As far as the bulk of the cold air, already the colder air is already receding to the east, and modified air across the southern plains. Here's wave number 3, not much of a push on that either. Looks like around Thursday or Friday we get this Gulf system pushing northeast, so plenty of rain through the deep south and into the Carolinas. And not really much going on for the weekend. A little bit more cold air coming south. Things become a little active up there in the northwestern U.S. The Pacific storm track is starting to definitely show up on those maps. Another Midwest storm system for midweek next week, and then another nose of cold air coming south for December 11th. And really, that's probably about all that I can tell you right now. We will check back in on that Arctic air again on Friday and next week, of course. And that concludes this episode of Forecast Lab. I want to announce we're running a 20% off voucher on weather graphics, software, and data, only for orders between now and December 10th. It's very rare we run any sales, so that's something you might want to check out. We are also offering gift wrap and Christmas cards on all products, including books for a very low fee, should you wish to send a gift to someone. That's at weathergraphics.com, and all purchases help support this program. And you can request an author signature on your books and make that gift extra special. Again, that helps support this program, and at the same time, you learn a little bit more than what we go into on this program. All right, hope you have a great Tuesday night. We'll see you back here on Friday for another edition. Take care. Bye-bye.